Today's Transformation Tuesday, I wanted to piggyback off of last week, which garnered a lot of response, a lot of views, shares, and resonated with a lot of folks as far as 5 common parenting practices that can affect the mental health and mental well-being of your child. So I wanted to piggyback on that today and discuss 5 parenting practices that you can implement or you can share if you're not a parent with friends of yours that can be implemented to raise emotionally healthy children. Because I think we can all agree that our goal as parents, as I said last week, is to raise children who are emotionally healthy, who are connected, who have a sense of just autonomy, and I'm just really excited to go out there and take on the world. So what is it that we can do as parents to ensure that these things happen? So I'm gonna get right to it. As always, if you want the longer version of this, you can go to Periscope, where I interact with a lot of the individuals, and share your feedback with me as well here on Facebook. Share your feedback on my In Full Bloom with Dr. Rose page, and the Dr. Rose In Full Bloom group on Facebook. But number one, so get to know your child. That's one of the first steps there. Get to know your child. I have 4 children, 4 different personality types. Trust me, it would be much, much easier as a parent if they were all the same personality type, because I could parent them all the same. But, you know, erroneously, we believe that our kids are supposed to be cookie cutter kids, that we can parent them all the same, but it's not true. When you get to know your child and understand that they have their own unique personality, they're not miniature versions of you, and they're not miniature versions of their older siblings or, you know, other children that may be in the family, it fares better for their emotional well-being. Some children are going to require a little bit more attention, a little bit more, you know, one-on-one affection. Some children are going to require that you kind of give them a little bit more, you know, reign to explore their world. My book, Bloom 7 Steps of Personal Transformation, Chapter 1 discusses this and discusses the different personality types that we will encounter, not just in our children, but in the world at large, and how you can best, you know, interact with that personality type to ensure a healthier and more connected emotional state. So get to know your child. So very important. You never want to discourage your child from being their authentic self. And this is one of the big issues I see in practice. Individuals who are now adults who were told not to be something and not to be their authentic true self, and now they're struggling in their adult lives because they just don't feel connected. And it's never too late if you feel that way. If you feel that way, you know, find a good therapist, reach out to me if you're in the metropolitan Detroit area, and I can help you, you know, really connect back with that person. But if we're parents, we know better, we can do better. Let's get these kids just feeling good about their true nature and who they are. Number 2, listen to your child. Really listen. Now, let's be honest. We live in a world with so many different distractions, and I've been guilty of it. I know you've been guilty of it. If you're a parent, your child comes to you and they're saying something, you're half paying attention. You're answering an email, you're working on a project, or what have you. As I mentioned last week, the home is the safe place where a child gets to practice speaking their voice, advocating for themselves, you know, really just really getting and plugged into being able to speak their voice. And as parents, if we ignore them, if we don't pay attention to them, if we don't truly listen to them and respond accordingly, we're teaching them that that's appropriate. We're teaching them that it's okay later on in their lives for people not to really acknowledge their voice. And having a voice is so necessary in life, and being comfortable in speaking that voice, and us to advocate for ourselves and our well-being, both emotional well-being and social well-being. So listen to your child. Really listen. Don't halfway listen. Kind of push the computer aside, you know, and really give them 100% of your attention when they're talking to you. And in this world, it's not always easy, but it's so necessary. Number 3, this is what ruffled so many feathers last week. Discipline and set appropriate limits. So last week I talked about how corporal punishment, which a lot of us have been guilty of or experienced, in our lives early on, corporal punishment is just a lazy way of discipline. And, and how a lot of people who will advocate for it will say, well, I had corporal punishment. I was beat as a child and I turned out okay. And I tell people, when you see these folks in therapy, trust me, their significant others, families, friends will attest that they have effects of that corporal punishment, be it not being able to be vulnerable, always aggressive, or not being able to let their guard down. So being able to discipline appropriately and set appropriate limits is so necessary, because kids crave discipline, but not the discipline that's going to belittle them, that's going to extinguish their spirit. Not that type of discipline. I shared this earlier today. I worked in a youth jail for several years. And one of the things I found out from many of these unfortunate kids between the ages of 11 to 17 that were locked up, a lot of them had corporal punishment. A lot of them had been whooped or beat and all that stuff. Didn't stop them from doing what they did to end up in jail. But one of the things that I noticed while they were in jail is that they appreciated structure. They didn't want to be there in jail, but they appreciated the structure that a lot of us provided for them, because they didn't have that structure. Because what discipline and structure does for a child, it makes them feel safe. So parents who are very permissive and let their kids go out there and do anything are kids who have more anxiety than parents who establish discipline. And that's because if a child knows that a parent is there to keep them safe, even when they go off course, it makes them feel safe. But for children who don't have that type of discipline in their lives, or the discipline to the other extreme that it really belittles them, like I said, it creates a great deal of anxiety. So one of the things I shared earlier, and I want you guys to share some of your creative discipline techniques that were used on you, or that others or that you've used on your children. I encourage you guys to share that. So because one thing we have to remember is that the most brilliant, the most ingenious, the biggest contributors to our world and all this technology we have, and just all the things we have to make our world a great place, they were not perfect children. They disappointed their parents. They let them down. They frustrated them. But their parents actually instilled some type of discipline or set appropriate limits for a lot. So I shared one of my most creative, and I say my most creative, or I should say my mother's most creative discipline techniques that she utilized on me. I was a teenager and I gave my mom hell. I really did. I was one of those kids that I'm talking about here, disappointed, frustrated. And one of the things that she did, I was a teenager that liked to slam the door, slam that door and talk back and do all those type of things that, would get us in trouble. But I came home one day after one of my little episodes of slamming doors and talking back, and I had no door in my room anymore. She'd actually taken a hammer and a screwdriver and removed the door off its hinges. And for a year, I was doorless. So imagine a teenager without a door in her bedroom for a year. I tell you, when that door went back on, I never slammed another door in my life. And I was careful about how much talking back I did, because I didn't know what other creative discipline technique she would implement. So we have to just really encourage just more creative, more effective discipline techniques that's going to teach our children the right skills, as opposed to just punish them, that's going to make them feel safe, because this is so very necessary. Number 4 is understand the developmental stage your child is in and do what's necessary to help them navigate it successfully. Depending on the age of your child, they're in particular developmental stages. Some school-age kids are in a stage where they're trying to, find out what they're good at, and that gives them a sense of industry, a sense of competence in something. And that needs to definitely be encouraged. That needs to be encouraged. So when a child shows interest in something, test it out. We know how many of us have put our kids in lessons and it didn't work out. That's okay. It's not a failure. This is what they need to do to find out what they're good at, what they're competent at. If we don't allow our children to achieve whatever developmental stage that they're in, it definitely affects them in adulthood. And instead of having adults who feel industry, and able to go out there and try new things, or a sense of well-being in the world, or a sense of firm identity or autonomy, we have adults who are there who won't try, or who feel inferior to others, and trust me, I hear this all the time in practice. I hear it with a lot of my coaching clients as well. So it's so important for us to nurture this in our children. And just understand what stage they're in. Chapter 2 of Bloom's 7 Steps of Personal Transformation goes over all of these stages and how you can effectively see that these stages are being met appropriately. So, if you don't have the book, you can order it off my website, or you can go to Amazon, download it for $1.99 on your Kindle. You can't beat that. Lastly, encourage imagination. Encourage imagination. So Albert Einstein said, logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will get you everywhere. Imagination, play is the work of kids. Imagination is the work of kids. This is where they really built their connection to the world, their sense of as I said before, industry and competence and things of that sort. So this past weekend, I spent time at a bed and breakfast in Bay City, Michigan for my husband's birthday. And one morning when we were headed down to breakfast, we were getting ready, headed down to breakfast. We had the windows open at the bed and breakfast, and it was a park area not too far away. And there was a little boy, you could hear him out there playing, and you heard him say, he said, "Mom, don't I look like I can fly? Look at me, I'm flying. Doesn't it look like I can fly?" And I had a look on my face, and my husband looked at me and said, "Why are you looking like that?" And it's an occupational hazard, because being a clinical psychologist, I'm always, kind of analyzing just my environment. But I shared with him, I said, what that child just said and the way his mother responds to him can make or break that child. If the mother responds, "Yes, look at you, you are flying. Isn't that amazing? Look what you can do." That instills that child right then and there with a sense of just wonder and capability and aptitude that he can carry with him for the rest of his life. Conversely, if the mother responds, "No, you can't fly. That's stupid. Get down from that playground," or, "It's time to go," or "I don't want to hear that," or "Shut up," or what have you, that right there will extinguish that child's sense of wonder in the world. Their sense of, let me go out there and explore. Let me see what else I can do, in addition to this flying. It's so necessary. Something as benign as a child being at a park playing and asking his parent, "Doesn't it look like I can fly?" can make such a huge difference in the emotional well-being of your child, depending on how you respond. So I want to encourage you guys to just be more conscious, be more deliberate in the way that you interact with your children and respond to them, because it's going to make a world of difference. So I thank you guys for joining me today. It's saying my connection is weak, so I don't want to risk it, but share this information on your timeline. Provide me with your feedback like you did last week. I love it. Join my Info Bloom with Dr. Rose group. Join the Dr. Rose and Bloom page. Share your creative discipline techniques for a chance to win some prizes and give away some books and t-shirts, on some of the most creative techniques that you guys can share. So thanks for joining me today. Have a great day and get out there and live your life in full bloom. Bye, everyone.